Well, right on time. What is this? Seltzer ditched me again. So he is at another wedding. Never met someone in their 40s so popular with weddings, but I feel like he's a bit of a young 40. So I know she's probably filling time right now, but I just got done walking Sutton around my neighborhood or whatever for the last like half hour. So when there's two camps here. One that has had kids and is looking at me and they're saying, "Been there," or there are the people that don't have kids, and if one day if you do, you'll be in that you'll be in that boat. So apologies for the late start here, but by the way, was it the fastest game in baseball history? I mean, it was ridiculous, but it seems like they were definitely ready to get out of there. And whole time I was walking Sutton around, all I can think about was the Phils. I mean, I know that's like not the most surprising sentence that you've ever heard in the entirety of this podcast, but what a win, what a series, and they are just playing good baseball. Excited to get into it all. So, of course, it is the High Hopes podcast, presented as always by Miller Lite. Jack Fritz, yours truly, here with you, and a couple things here before we get into it. May 31st, we are going up to Reading to see the Fightin' Phils as, record-wise, not a hot start for the Fightin' Phils, but still, we're there to see Aiden Miller and some of the other young talent. So looking forward to it. The links are in our Twitters. If you go to iHope's Twitter, you go to my Twitter. They should be towards the top there. So definitely get in. Only a few tickets remaining. So it'll be a great night. It'll be an awesome night, and we will go up there as Aiden Miller's road to the show continues. Aiden 2 for 4 today. We won't talk about the 0 for 6 yesterday. Only the 2 for 4 today. But tonight, and let's just start off with the single most important thing from the series and the beginning of this season is just pay Kyle Schwarber. I understand that you probably don't want to pay him during the season where you have JT as well, and you're trying not to create some kind of awkward dynamic. And they pay one guy, they don't pay another guy. Both have been tenured Phillies. JT probably a Phillies Wall of Famer one day, but I don't like and if there's some handshake agreement here where we're not going to deal with it in season because we don't like it, what the Eagles have done the last couple of years. I mean, the Eagles for ever since Joe Banner all the way back in the early 2000s took over, and at the beginning of Howie Roseman's tenure, they always paid guys during the season, and it was a staple because you could save some money. Now, every single Kyle Schwarber home run's not saving the Phillies any money at all, but like if it's a handshake thing and he's a priority, okay. If you want to wait until after the season, okay. I beg of you. I beg of you. I didn't think I would I love Kyle Schwarber. I didn't think I'd be at the point of begging. I am begging the Phillies to get the Kyle Schwarber contract done. I don't care if it's now. I don't care if it's a day after the season. I don't care if it's during the freaking World Series parade. I do not care when the Kyle Schwarber contract happens, as long as it happens. He is so important to this baseball team. He's important leadership-wise. You want to talk about some of the minor little things that Kyle Schwarber does behind the scenes? First, he was the first guy to dug out yesterday, which I really appreciated. Brandon Marsh has talked about how he's been in his corner every single day, trying to help him get out of his slump or early season struggles. By the way, Marsh is hitting .462 since coming off of the injured list. Good signs there. Is he perfect? No. Is Brandon Marsh a good player? I still believe so. And maybe we have back to the whole platoon thing with him and Rojas. Rojas struggled tonight. Now he did smoke a ball off of Clase in the ninth, so that was good to see. But regardless, that guy is the man. He is the man. Kyle Schwarber, and yelling at 10:30 on Sunday night about Kyle Schwarber like an absolute lunatic. But he is so important to this baseball team. He has been important from turning the culture around. I don't think there's any coincidence that the second that they have started to win around here, because they have had the same core. They have had Wheeler here. They've gotten an MVP season from Bryce. They've had Prime JT. They've had some of these guys at the peak of their powers, but they did not start winning until Kyle Schwarber showed up. And the craziest part about Kyle Schwarber and the season that he's having so far and the season that he had last year is he's going to end up getting a bigger contract being 3 years older than the original contract that he signed. That's almost impossible to do for someone in their 30s. It's not like he was 29, I guess, when he signed the contract. Still, we're going to round up for the sake of the conversation that he was in his 30s, and he's going to get a bigger deal. And for my money, and it's not John Middleton money, this is just for my money, which, could argue is not the biggest in the world. But for my money, he is this team's Big Papi. And I remember reading The Cubs Way back in, I don't know, after they won the World Series, and Kyle Schwarber was obviously a part of it. And I just will, the quote that sticks in my head forever is Theo Epstein talking about Kyle Schwarber and saying, we just drafted our David Ortiz. And it didn't work out in Chicago. Now, they got a World Series, of course. And then he got non-tendered. We know that. But the Big Papi prophecy might be happening right now. He is not striking out all the time. He is not hitting 188. He is hitting above 260, 270. He has the second most home runs in baseball. He has been an absolute steal. When people talk about what has Dave Dombrowski done for this baseball team, he brought Kyle Schwarber to Philadelphia. And that's a pretty damn good thing to have on your resume. Pretty damn good. A home run tonight off that lefty, his second home run that he hit. I don't know how you hit him. I thought he was disgusting. Now, he made a bad pitch. He made an absolute hanger. But, he's like 6'4", up to 95 with a pretty wipeout slider. And 2 years ago, Schwarber has no chance. But not this version of Kyle Schwarber. So, the Stars are really starting to do their thing. Obviously, the big one, we'll get to him. But, we've talked a lot about this team and kind of settling into the season. And obviously we don't know this, but there's always been a lot of comparisons between this team and the Eagles of last year. Both teams had their collapses at the end of last year. Eagles came out. It was 2-2. It wasn't the prettiest in the world. And obviously they had the bye week and they went on a run, and they were the most dominant team I have ever seen. I've ever seen mount up or show up in Philadelphia. I mean, last year's Eagles team was the best I've ever seen. Just pure dominance, top to bottom. And they always talk about that bye week. And I just wonder if there was something similar with this team after the Mets series, where they said, are we going to let this thing fall apart, or are we going to come out tomorrow and show that we're a damn good baseball team? And since that moment, they have looked like a totally different team. They look like they are buying into the not chasing everything. Now, it's not perfect. There are guys that are chasing, but it looks like that they're buying into what they talked about at the end of last year and what they talked about heading into spring training, which was pass the baton. They're walking a good amount. They're not striking out a ton, which is good to see. They're using more of the whole field. I know tonight was home run. Kyle Schwarber was the offense tonight, and that happens. Believe it or not, you do have to hit home runs. You cannot just small ball your way to a World Series. You have to be able to hit home runs. But last night in the game on Saturday, obviously Bryce had the home run, but the rest of that inning, first off, all with 2 outs. I don't know if I've ever seen I don't know if I've ever seen the Phillies have that many runs with 2 outs, especially this version of the Phillies. Maybe back in '08 they did, but not this version of the Phillies. And to have all those runs with 2 outs, they're beating you in different ways. They are not just relying upon the home run. They are passing the baton. They are using the whole field. They're getting better. They're getting better with runners in scoring position. It's never going to be possible. It's never going to be perfect. You're not going to hit 400 with runners in scoring position. There's going to be times where you don't come through. But you look at, and I feel like we're focusing so much on the offense, and I feel like mostly because that's everyone's. I mean, that's the key to this team reaching its apex is this offense proving they can get the job done. And when you do look at the offense, the Guardians are a good team, and I feel like always from afar when you watch these teams or you see these teams, you look at the record, like, oh, they're a good team. They're the same record heading into tonight. But then you watch those two teams on paper, and the Guardians have Kwan at the top, and they have Jose Ramirez, who are phenomenal. But then everything else is just eh. And then you look at the Phillies, and it's like it's there. Like they are a really deep lineup when things are looking when they're doing their jobs. And I think that's been the most encouraging thing of how they've won since that Mets series is they just look like a group of individuals on offense that are doing their jobs and playing winning baseball. And I think that is what is giving me the most hope for this being more real than not. We've seen this offense. We've seen them win 10 of 11 of 13 before, 11 of 14. But there's been times during that where you'll watch the offense and you'll say, doesn't really pass my smell test. And I'm actually surprised for me personally, because I have been such a skeptic of this offense and was in way more I'll believe it when I see it kind of feeling with them. But I am way more bullish than I thought I would be because of mostly the style of baseball they're playing. And I think that's been the most encouraging part of this last little stretch is that they're really doing it in a way that is not how they've done it in years past. It's not just a barrage. It's been much more base to base, getting some small ball, moving a guy over, getting him in. Now, obviously, Friday night was a disaster, but at the same time, they didn't get in till 3:30 in the morning in Cleveland, and the effort just wasn't there. So you can kind of give them a pass there. You hate to do a scheduled loss thing. You hate to make excuses, but sometimes, excuses are explanations. And we'll see what the effort is like tomorrow. Now, at least they get to return home. But the Cardinals have won 8 straight, but still, it's playing Sunday Night Baseball and then flying home and then having to be right back out there. Hopefully, they, with the energy of the home crowd, they will get the juices flowing and be all good to go from that standpoint. But again, Cardinals have won 8 straight, so not exactly the easiest of tests. And obviously, the Phillies got some unfinished business off of what happened. Was that a month ago when they went out to there and lost 2 of 3? So other things from this weekend, Ranger was just phenomenal. I mean, Ranger, like that's what you want to see from Ranger. That was first month and a half, 2 months of Ranger Suarez, really before he got hit in the wrist in that one game. And I don't know. I find that hard to believe that a wrist or that hit off the wrist derailed his season. But I know this sounds so simplistic, but it's just the best way I can describe it. I mean, Ranger Suarez was pitching yesterday. I mean, absolutely pitching. You saw the command of his fastball back to where when Rangers dotting his fastball where it can be, but it wasn't even that. I mean, everything off of it was so good. He would just jam fastballs in on righties. If they swung at it, great. It's being driven into the ground. If not, he's just going to throw a changeup away and you're going to roll over on it because you're speeding up for the fastball in. It was peak Ranger. It was peak. There it is. There's Ranger. We've seen that. And the biggest thing for Ranger now It's just whether or not he can hold up physically. I mean, Ranger's a really good pitcher when he's healthy, but now comes into question: where is he at with the back? Is it going to be able to hold up? He's dealt with it the last couple of years, and we've seen him have these stretches where, oh my gosh, he's one of the best pitchers in the National League, and he's got the best command of the sport, and he's Greg Maddux from the left side. But then the back issues creep up, and his stuff starts flattening out, and it's like, well, there's also the downside of Ranger. So I think everything with Ranger right now is certainly, you're approaching with, like, this is great. Love watching him when he's healthy, but it's not quite like Embiid levels where you're just waiting for something to go wrong. But at least at least off of yesterday, it was a pure sight to see. I mean, it was a pure enjoyment of watching a guy at that just be a craftsman out there. I mean, he was a craftsman, up, down, in, out, change ups away, mixing in the curveball when needed. It was an absolute joy. And there's that middle. I mean, he's what, like 60 some pitches in the sixth inning. I mean, it was ridiculous and it was easy. And the one that was the part that was so funny to me was it when Jose Ramirez was safe at second base, and it seemed like it was the longest review in baseball history. It took forever, and he has the guy 0-2. It's a 6 minute delay, 7 minute delay, right back on the mound, 0-2. Struck him out next pitch. It was hilarious, and it was so Ranger. He also had one that was hit right back at him, and he lobbed it over Cliff Lee style to first base. Man, when he's on, he is such a joy. I mean, he is such a joy, and he was dominant yesterday. And speaking of dominance, ho hum, Zach Wheeler showing up, dominating again, easy, quick outs. This starting staff is just a monster, especially with Ranger being back. And it was really good with Taiwan in there. I mean, I know Taiwan is not exact. I mean, I think a lot of people are happy for Taiwan, and hopefully he can give them 3 really good innings twice a week, and he can help this team from that standpoint. But whatever. Starting staff wise, they are on paper just ridiculous, and every single night, we're tuning in to see something special. I mean, the starting staff was always going to be good enough to be able to keep them afloat if the offense wasn't going to do their thing. Bullpen, we'll get to more bullpen thoughts here, but the starting staff was always going to be good enough to where even when the offense sputtered, or even if the bullpen was like going through one of its rough patches, you feel pretty good that those guys, 2 out of every 3 games, are going to give you 7 innings. And there's not many staffs in baseball where you can say that. Are there staffs that have guys with better pure stuff? Probably. But the Phillies have a really good mixture of a staff that has good stuff. They have durability. They go deep into games, and they have pitchability. And I think that's been the biggest thing that they have emphasized with this group is pitchability. Zach Wheeler has some of the best stuff in baseball, but he is generating in most games quicker outs, early contact. Ranger Suarez, a king with that. Chris Sanchez, thing that has helped propel him the last couple of years, early contact. What has gotten Jesus Luzardo to another level? Stuff is still stupid, but he's traditionally so far been more efficient with it. His last start was not the most efficient, but still battled, grinded. And Nola had obviously wasn't great on Friday night, made 2 bad pitches. They got smoked. But before that was settling into a groove. I do wonder what they're going to do with the Marshawn Real Muto thing. I mean, the numbers are the numbers. Are they everything? Are they the end of the world? Are they the biggest thing? No idea. But they are what they are. His ERA is over 7.5 with Marshawn, and it's 2.79 with JT Realmuto. I believe both are in 4 starts. So he went on a good stretch with Real Muto. They went back to Marshawn because obviously, you're not going to play JT every single day, and it didn't really work. I mean, it didn't really work. So maybe they adjust there. Maybe they put Marshawn on someone else. I guess if I was looking at it through their lens, Nola is a veteran guy. It shouldn't matter what catcher's back there. I was listening to the broadcast. I was listening to Stalker on Friday night, and he was saying that maybe there's something with Marshawn setting up late. It's this big thing in baseball now, where back in the day, the way that we all grew up playing baseball, the catcher would set a target, and it would pretty much stay there because the old adage was you get your eyes locked in on it, and it becomes like a mental thing. Like mentally, you're locked in on that pitch. And where the game has changed is they'll set the target and then they'll drop the glove and they'll try to get underneath it to steal strikes. Now, it does have its benefits because it does steal strikes. And it's harder for the umpires to pick up that to pick up the pitch when you're getting underneath it and you're bringing it into the strike zone. But maybe where it hurts a guy like Nola is he is old school from the standpoint of see target, hit target. And Stock were saying they think Real Muto does that more. Now, if that is the case, it seems like a pretty simple conversation to have with Rafael Marchand saying, leave the target up. And if you need to steal strikes, don't worry about stealing strikes. Just leave the target up, and I'll hit the target. Because there's just been in the two starts of Real Muto right before that, felt like Nola didn't miss a pitch. He was down, and they went back to this, and he missed two spots up, and they got crushed. So again, I guess I would be surprised with the catcher thing, but maybe there's something to it. If it's as simple as something like that, I think that's a pretty easy fix. I think it's a pretty easy fix. So we'll see what happens this week with Nola. Maybe they go back to JT, try to sneak Marchand in somewhere else. We're ready to get Stubbsy back up here. It's tough because Marchand's being a backup catcher is just not the easiest thing in the world. And people love to dump on the backup catcher. But Rafael Marchand is a youngish player that is used to playing every single day. And now he is relegated to playing once a week and having to be prepared and having to stay locked in. It's just not the easiest thing in the world. And I think it takes a little bit to get adjusted to being able to do what a backup catcher does. And that was the value of Stubbsy. It's like, hey, it's not like he was going to get up there and kill the ball. But like, I think he understood and got used to being a backup catcher. Now, as always, the problem with the Marchand and Stubbs conversation is that if you want to send Marchand down, you have to place him on waivers because he has no options left. And Stubbs had the one option and whatever. So if you're going to make that move, you got to be pretty damn sure. And I'm still pretty bullish on Marchand. I think he's a good player. I think he's gotten off to a brutal start as the backup, as in his first stint as backup catcher. So I don't really want to place him on waivers yet because I do think he is good enough to get picked up by someone. So I'm sure there are people out there that want Stubbs back up here, which is funny because last year it was the worst idea in the world to have Garrett Stubbs in this team. And I do think that they lost their Stubbs privilege. If I'm going to be honest, they got to earn having Garrett Stubbs in this baseball team. But if Marchand continues to struggle and pitchers throwing to him continue to struggle, the conversation's going to happen. And we'll see how it kind of goes. But that's my thoughts on it right now. Wouldn't pull the plug early in the season, getting adjusted to doing a job that he's not totally used to doing. And I don't really want to lose him because I think he could be a good, solid good, solid big league catcher. So, couple other things before we get some questions in here. How about Jordan Romano? I mean, it feels like the meltdown against the Marlins is in our rear view. I think there's still a certain number of people that don't totally trust him, and if you're still in that camp, totally fine. But after the Mets series, we were buying stock in Jordan Romano, and he's done a damn good job. And there was some idea of him maybe tipping pitches in that Marlins series, and I think he's certainly adjusted to that since. Everything looks much more crisp. That slider looks closer to the slider that we'd seen those years with the Blue Jays. And when he can get that over 96, 97, certainly looks much, much tougher to hit. So again, tonight, pretty easy. And it was the heart of the Guardians order. You know, it was interesting. It was interesting by Rob Thompson. He chose to go Alvarado 8-9-1. And that was all about making sure Stephen Kwan did not get on the base paths and wreak havoc, or God forbid, go yard or anything with guys on. It's a little lefty matchup there. So I get it. They have two big threats in the lineup. It's him and Jose Ramirez. So he opted for let's shut down Kwan here. We'll bring Alvarado in and we'll trust Romano with the eighth. And that's trust Romano with the ninth. And that is a big, big development if they feel comfortable enough to have someone else close out a game, because it does make Alvarado that much more valuable when you can bring him in the eighth. In the seventh feels a little bit early, but you get the point. If you can bring Alvarado in and have someone else in the back end that you can trust, it just makes it so much easier for Rob Thompson to say, okay, you go get the heart of the order, because it's a 2-run game and you want to put the fire out at that point, and we'll leave Romano an easier, in a perfect world, an easier situation to deal with in the ninth. And Jordan Romano obviously has closer experience. He was an all-star, 2-time all-star, and he's just looking closer and closer to the guy that I think we thought we were signing when they signed him. So again, that was pretty easy, pretty efficient, and it's not bad when you can get a starter going 7 innings and then be able to hand off to those two. So, the Jordan Romano stock price should have gotten a couple series ago. Because it is certainly flying up. So I think that's all I got right now is this opening monologue. But Tucker, let's get a few questions before getting out of here. Jack, what the heck do we do with Mick Abel? Surely they can't just let him carve up AAA guys all year and not give him a shot, right? Appreciate the question, Andrew Freilinger. I wish he could come up, obviously, and Mick Abel was, I think, left for dead prospect-wise. People had given up on him. He had fallen off the top 100 lists. And he was a super young guy, and he had to get used to AAA. And the value of Abel was he was taking down a ton of innings. Now, it wasn't really going very well. They clearly made some adjustments with him this year. You look at a lot of the models out there, his stuff grades out at a big league level, which is crazy. The fastball, I think, is a special pitch, and man, he's dominating. It's actually a really good case for Stubbs, and it's actually not a bad reason to keep him down there. Is working with a guy like Mick Abel, a young guy, and working with Painter now, obviously being up there. So it's actually a good case to keep Garrett Stubbs down there. But man, does Abel look good. I didn't get to see didn't get to watch the full game yesterday, but it seemed like more of the same. And in my opinion, he's probably trade bait, which stinks because he's obviously, taking a step up here. I think he's trade bait because, when Painter gets up here, I don't know where you put him. I don't think they want to put him in the bullpen. Now, maybe if he's here post-trade deadline, you can start trying him in the bullpen. There's no reason to start him in the bullpen, or there's no reason to put him in the bullpen right now because again, the Phil's pen is starting to kind of come together a little bit. But maybe if he's here after the trade deadline and you're still in a really good spot starting wise, maybe then you would try it. But I think right now he's probably trade bait. And Ryan Helms is coming to town. I think Helms is trending down a little bit and he's entering into obviously his walk year. I think my number one guy right now for the bullpen would be Felix Bautista, but as we get closer and closer to the deadline, we'll break that down more. But yeah, I'm really happy for Mick. He seems like a good kid by all accounts, and I'm glad that he was able to figure it out. But if I had to put my money on it, I think he's more trade bait than anything. What's next? Jack Jim Bowden said the Phillies are in the running for Luis Robert, as they have been predicted for like a year and a half with his numbers. Is it really worth what it will take to get him? I'm pretty over Luis Robert. And, last year I was much more interested in him. Might just not be that good. I mean, he just, it's a lot of strikeouts. Now, again, if he wanted to play devil's advocate, he's with the White Sox. It's not a great place to play, not a great place to hit. Comes here, gets a new lease on life. Playing in front of that ballpark, the upside is still the upside, but I would be a little disheartened if the Dodgers got him. Of course, the Mets are kind of rumored to be in there as well, which would stink. But yeah, Luis Robert just might not be good. He might not be that good. Talent is tantalizing, but I know that we're still sitting here with Rojas and Marsh. Who, I mean, again, Marsh hitting well since coming off the IL, and Rojas 0 for 4 tonight. But again, did smoke a ball late off of Class A. Is it perfect? No, definitely not. In a perfect world, would I like another righty, maybe to pair with Kepler in left field, who didn't have the best road trip. Although he did have the big hit Saturday, which was good to see, but still not an overall great road trip down to like 235-ish. But yeah, I'm pretty over Luis Robert, if I'm going to be honest. What's next? What upgrades do you think we need to make? Obviously, bullpen arm, but I feel like on the offensive side, I feel like we have the personnel to see the results when it matters. Yeah, I mean, it's going to ultimately come down to the stars on offense, probably. I think getting a right-handed bat to play left field and maybe platoon with Kepler would be big. I like Weston Wilson. Maybe it's Otto Kemp. I don't. If it is, I'd be through the roof. I'd be happy. Most interesting thing heading into the deadline to me is like, what are people willing to give up? Is this team a team that you want to sell some of the big pieces for? Like for me, I don't want to put Painter on the table. I want to put Aiden on the table. I don't want to put Crawford on the table. I don't want to put Tait on the table, and I don't want to put Arun Escobar on the table. Like those are the five that I'm keeping off limits. That limits you when it comes to getting a real difference maker. Again, I want to keep the window open. I want to have young guys be able to come up and help this team. And, I want them to not have the window slammed shut when these guys get old and they have to, being able to keep it open. I want to win a championship, obviously, but I also don't want to, I don't want to give up the future for the right now. Maybe things change at the deadline and they make it very apparent that this team's real and it's time to go for it and blah, 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 blah. Fine. Where it stands right now, those five are off limits. Don't want to trade them. Don't want it. Now, that should not preclude them from being able to get an interesting bullpen piece. I think Felix Bautista would love him. Duran from the Twins, if he's really available, would love him. Twins have won 7 straight. So they are, well, that was heading into today and see what they did today, but still. Right-handed bat off the bench or a right-handed bat to pair with Kepler, make that platoon a little bit stronger, get someone above Weston Wilson. Should that cost you a top 5 prospect? Probably not. I also just don't know who the best players at the trade deadline are going to be. I mean, it might be Luis Robert. Like, I don't know. There might not be that obvious. There it is. Go get him kind of move. It might have to be one of these fringe type of trades. And I know that people are going to be furious. There goes Dombrowski again, but he's serving two things here: keeping this team good and giving them some upgrades and giving them some pieces, and also not trading the farm. And I am definitely in the mindset of I don't want to give up any of those five right now because I want to keep this window open as long as possible. All right, what's next? Do you think from Morgan Landy? Do you think Romano is earning his closer job back, or do you think Topper will flip flop with Alvarado? I think it's going to be matchup dependent. I think that Alvarado is at this point is getting the most important outs in the high leverage situations. So if it's meat of the order in the eighth, second, it's a 2-hole hitter, 3-hole cleanup or whatever. Even if it's a lefty, whatever. I think that is how he's going to do it. Romano getting back to looking closer-ish is just big from the standpoint of being able to do that and being able to go matchup dependent and having a guy in the back end that can do his job as well. It's a little bit like what they did with Kimbrel in the beginning of the 23 season, and that obviously turned Kimbrel into an all-star. And when Topper had that guy at the back end that had closing experience and was doing the job, he was fine going to him, and it made Alvarado a really valuable rover. Now, I don't think Romano has pitched well. As of right now, he's pitched well enough to earn it, but I don't think we have to do that at this point. I think Alvarado should still get the ninth if it's all things being equal. But I really think that Romano is turned a corner, and I don't think he's Kimbrel. I don't think that arm's cooked. I don't think that arm is trending towards being shot. He looks fired out of a cannon. And now when he's pitching well, the quirky stuff's kind of funny, like when he's mumbling to himself and walking around the mound like a madman and, being a zany Looney Tune kind of reliever. It's funny when he's pitching well. When he's not pitching well, it's annoying. But now that he's pitching well, he's our guy. So Jordan Romano, the Jordan Romano experience, but he certainly, I think, has turned a corner. And the bullpen, slowly but surely. I mean, Carlos Hernandez is probably the weakest link right now, but even he's kind of pitching a little bit better. Joe Ross is pitching a little bit better. So I don't feel hopeless right now when the bullpen enters the game. And the biggest one they need is Kirkering to really right the ship. And if we're going to talk about slumps with Bryce, then we got to talk about slumps with some pitchers as well. Speaking of Bryce, I'm glad that I kind of had the little memory thing. Obviously, Friday not great. Had a big Saturday. Tonight, he did hit the ball the wall late off the lefty, which is good to see. The one at bat in the middle of the game was just good morning, good afternoon, and good night. And the thing with Bryce, I really don't lose sleep over Bryce. This is a slump. It happens in baseball. People will bring up, well, he's to 254 since July of last year, whatever. He hit 319 in September of last year, I believe. And if you go by the last 2 months of the season, he hit over 300. Now, is the power thing there? Maybe, but I'll believe Bryce is cooked when I see Bryce being cooked. But I just think this over concern and again might just be my mentions because people know how much I care about the Phillies, and they like to try to get under my skin. This whole the contract and not living up to it and overpaid. Can we just shut up? I mean, can we just shut up and let him work his way through it? It's May 11th. They're winning a ton of baseball games. He has said the right things. He's not saying he's owning up to it. He's saying after games like, "I know I'm struggling. I'm well aware, and I'm just glad my teammates are picking me up." And you know, I got out on 2 weeks ago because I thought he was being mopey out there. Um, and I think since that time, not saying I had anything to do with it. Obviously, I'm not like a psychopath, but I think he also is very aware of what the conversation is around him. And I think he's been perfectly fine since then. Has the results been there the whole time? No. But I think at least on the field wise has not been super mopey. And Scott Franzke and Kevin Stocker again tonight were saying like people around say he's been the best he's been, since he's been here with being the leader, being the teammates. And, I like that they're saying that kind of stuff, obviously. And I think it's okay to give him the benefit of the doubt and say he's gonna fight his way out of this thing. And I wouldn't be surprised if we look up in July and he's up to 280 and 15 home runs and looks like the Bryce Harper that we're used to seeing. He's obviously going through a slump right now. It's not the first time it's happened. He's getting, he's getting more breaking balls than he's ever gotten in his entire career. And I think that's made him late on fastballs, and he's just missing all these fastballs. And I feel bad for the pitchers in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, when he's not missing those fastballs, because he's not going to miss 97 down the middle for that much longer. He's not going to do it. I promise you that. So listen, if we look up in July and he's hitting 240 and not looking the part, okay. May 11th when they're winning, and he did have the game on Saturday. I just let Bryce live, and when he heats up, maybe someone else is cooling down. Maybe Turner cools down. Stott's on a little bit of a cool streak for sure. He's definitely calmed down a little bit. Maybe Schwarber cools off. I don't know if he will, but I feel pretty confident that at some point Bryce Harper is gonna heat up and be fine. And can we just take a deep breath? Can we just take a deep breath at Bryce? That's all I'm saying. All right, Tucker, what do you think? Like 2 more here? Is it true Seltzer doesn't even know who won the game tonight because he went to bed like 2 hours ago? So he is in California until like Wednesday. All this guy does is take time off. On top of the flight situation from a couple weeks ago where he had missed work. It doesn't even work anymore. He told me he doesn't really have great service, so that would suggest to me that he probably did not watch the game tonight, which is disappointing because he was at that point, he was an Indians fan, or not Indians fan. He liked the 90s Indians, which it seemed like everyone was a huge fan of those teams, and I don't blame them. They're awesome. But yeah, he's not in bed. No way. He's out in California time. So, yeah, we'll get him back on the pod eventually. I mean, you might be dealing with some solo pods until Thursday. So, but he'll be back soon. All right, Tucker. How many starts are paying in Lehigh Valley before he's called up this summer, and who goes to the bullpen from Ben Stroop? I would think 4, like 3 or 4 starts, and then he's probably ready. His first start was 3 innings, 60 pitches, had the bases loaded, and then was obviously pulled from the game. He really does remind me of Verlander, just stuff wise, like early Verlander. He's going to be awesome. I do think he needs to change his fastball up a little bit. It's the one thing that I don't think is totally bounced back post Tommy John is what his four-seamer was before that. So, maybe that's something that as he continues to pitch more, the four-seamer gets back up. But he's right on the doorstep of the big leagues. And again, they have a plethora of starting pitchers. It's remarkable. So I don't know what they're going to do. Maybe that's when we get the old 6-man rotation and they go from there. But we're not putting Ranger in the bullpen off of what he just did the other night. He just went 7 innings and dominated, and it looked like Ranger Suarez. If he slows down, back becomes a thing, has to miss time. Okay, maybe we put Ranger in the bullpen, but it's a pretty damn good problem to have, and obviously everyone has to maintain their health, and then maybe they consider, maybe they consider giving some guys some Phantom ILs. And Lazard is someone that they are probably going to need to manage his innings. Lazard is someone who's not, he's only made over 30 starts one time and was dealing with injuries heading into this year. So maybe they give him some time off. Chris Sanchez has been off and on sometimes with the injuries. Maybe Wheeler if they want to manage his innings. I don't think they're going to worry about Nola. He'll be out there every fifth day, baby. Every fifth day, Aaron. But man, it's a damn good problem to have. It's a damn good problem to have. So it's a good time in Phil's land, man. Good time in Phil's land. Tonight's game flew. I think it helped. I think it helped that the umpire was dreadful. I mean, that must have been the biggest strike zone since what, the Levon Hernandez game. It was ridiculous. But either way, come back. That's a good Guardians team. Are they great? No. You look at the lineup. You don't really see it outside of Quan and Jose Ramirez, but man, they can pitch. Starters did their thing. They did not hit starting pitching well this series, by the way, but not bad starters. I think Walker's still awake, so I got to get out of here. It's 11:15 tonight. That is not a good sign. So thanks everyone for hanging out, and we'll be back later with another edition of the Iowa's podcast.